Hey there, welcome back. It's the day after my first class at Rice University in the CFP program. We're studying insurance. So today what I wanted to do is just a quick preview video for our next time together, which will be this Thursday night. And the topic in Chapter 3 is health insurance. So one of the things that came up last night is Adam had a good suggestion. He suggested that I provide my PowerPoint so that you have this access to the same PowerPoint that I'm using. So I am editing, updating the PowerPoint slides that it's kind of a template. It comes with the book, but I'm doing a lot of edits to it. So what I'll do is I will upload this to Canvas prior to class Thursday night. But I have a question I wanted to find out, and you can tell me in class, or you can put a comment in the video. If you're on YouTube, you can do that. Just leave a comment. If you're in Canvas, you can also do it there. But tell me if it would make sense to upload a PDF. I can export a PDF from the PowerPoint, or we can actually upload the PowerPoint. I'm not sure which one you would prefer to work with. Frankly, I would prefer to take the PDF and stick it into Notability, which is what I use, and then I could just take the document that we're working on and I could put it on the screen, and I could do all kinds of things with it like that. I could draw and highlight and have fun. Anyway, that's kind of how I roll. So I just need to know what you prefer. I can do either one, obviously. It doesn't matter which file I upload. But anyway, so one of the things I wanted to also talk about is we made a deal last night. We made a deal that I would give you 10 points for extra points towards your final exam in insurance if you would complete your these quizzes. So the way I understood our commitment to one another is I'll ask Lori to go ahead and post 10 bonus points to your final exam if you basically turn all of these little blocks here, these bars, to orange. And the way you do that is quite simply, you just go into the quick quiz and you take the questions. And this week, this lesson, health insurance, it looks like there are only 9 questions. So I did this morning. I took the questions, took the quiz. I got the little orange bar. But if you saw how that worked, I missed a couple of those questions. And so what I did after I took the quizzes is I went ahead and hit all questions. And then I basically went through all of the questions and answered them. I got them all right. And that gave me, 100% there when I got to the practice portal. So if I can get back to that. So you see there that I got 100%. So here's what I'm going to suggest. And we can talk about this Thursday, but this is my proposal. It's kind of a revision maybe, but I would like to see everybody have 100% there, which really just means after you do the quick quizzes and get your little orange bar to show, then you're going to take a screenshot and you're going to send that to me so I can confirm that you did what you said you were going to do, and you got all these little orange bars. Tweet, 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 tweet. So once you do that, we'll be good to go. You'll get the points. But what I want to encourage you to do is not just get the orange bars, but do this as well. Get the 100% all the way through here. And the reason I'm encouraging you to do that is because, as I shared with you last night, there's a ton of material in this section, and I mean the whole insurance section. So I know you knew that, and this is my first time, so I'm just again kind of realizing the mountain of stuff we have to go through. And I'm convinced from my own experience taking the CFP exam that these test questions are the best way to focus in and make sure that you know the content that you need, not just for the final exam in this course, but for the more important exam, which is your CFP exam. So I'm just going to throw that out there and hope you'll agree that that's a worthy thing for us to focus on and do. And I'd feel really good about giving you 10 points to do that. And maybe even 12 points. I think that's what Stephanie suggested. But anyway, that's just my suggestion. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend just a few minutes going over the learning objectives. And the way I'd like to do that is I'd like to try to push this little button and see what happens.
1. Understand the need for health insurance. 2. Describe the fundamental changes imposed by the Affordable Care Act. 3. Discuss group health insurance and its features and types. 4. Discuss the need for individual health insurance and the different types of policies. 5. Describe the common provisions in a health insurance policy. 6. Differentiate the types of group and individual health insurance plans. 7. Describe the taxation of health insurance policies. 8. Compare and contrast group and individual health insurance alternatives, including fee-for-service and managed care health plans. 9. Describe the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985, COBRA. 10. Explain alternatives for acquiring health coverage including COBRA and Medicaid. 11. Describe health savings accounts and flexible spending accounts. 12. List the activities of daily living, ADLs. CFP Board Resource Document, Student-Centered Learning Objectives based upon CFP Board.
Now, what I want to point out briefly is that several of these learning objectives have that little asterisks thing there. That little asterisks, and you see that at the bottom. So you want to pay attention to those. And that's that. So this is the chapter. We're going to jump right in this Thursday. You want to read this chapter. I think it probably would be good if you read it before class. That's always a good idea. You can help keep me on task. So we'll go through this PowerPoint, and I will, let's see if we can make this real quick. I'll just jump through here, and we'll just go through. I didn't want to go through that one. Let's start here. Start from current slide. So what I want to do is just take a minute and kind of go through the topics and the slides that we'll be doing Thursday night. So the Affordable Care Act is a big piece of our study this week. And bonus point, what does TCJA stand for? In 2017, it repealed the individual mandate from the 2010 ACA. So just TCJA. The Affordable Care Act has 4 different plans, so you'll want to be familiar with these. The bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, and they each give a higher percentage of copay, basically. The benefits of the group health insurance. One of the things, big distinction here, the group plans, we'll focus on what a group plan is, why it's a good plan, and how it works, and who's eligible for it. Types of group health insurance, there are 2 kinds. There's the basic and the major, and we'll unpack that a little bit this week. The group basic medical insurance obviously covers hospital and physician bills and surgical bills, but typically it has low policy limits. And due to those low limits, group basic medical coverage is often used in conjunction with group major medical insurance. Group major medical insurance supplements the basic medical coverage that's permitted through a wider array of services. Sometimes these policies are referred to as group supplemental insurance plans, and you'll want to remember that title. It could be on the test. Major medical insurance, group comprehensive major medical insurance plans combine the benefits of the basic medical coverage and major medical coverage. So these will be some of the things we'll go through. We'll have some examples. In this example, you'll see this either on the slides or in a PDF, whichever one I upload. But this focuses on the fact that the deductible has to be satisfied only once per year. And that can easily trick you up when you're doing a question like this on the exam. It's one of the things you just have to be aware of. So that's one of the areas we'll focus on. We'll do some practice questions together in class. This is just one example of one of those questions. So let's see, group health insurance. Coordination of benefits is a very important provision. It just prevents people from collecting more than 100% of their actual expenses. Even if they have two policies that cover, it's a standard provision in health insurance. Another thing we'll need to be aware of is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and also how pre-existing conditions are treated. So you see here that pre-existing condition clauses cannot last more than 12 months when going from one group plan to another plan. And the 12-month period is reduced for every month of coverage under a previous plan. That's a nice distinction. So we see there's some tax, this is interesting, there are some tax penalties for folks who fail to have sufficient health insurance. And then in that TCJA thing, and that got repealed. So we'll need to be aware of that, especially if you're sitting for your exam this year or even next year. The interesting thing about all of these laws related to any kind of insurance, really, especially when the Fed is involved, is they could change. With one act of Congress, they could change. But right now, this is what we need to be responsible for in terms of the exam. So eligibility, some more issues we'll need to be focusing on. The 2010 healthcare legislation changed some of the rules concerning pre-existing condition coverage, which helped a lot of people. This was one of the things that I think Congress got right. They had good intentions, obviously, all along. You could question whether or not the bill and the actual act itself is working, but there were some things that were done that were very helpful for consumers. And as CFPs, we need to be aware of how the current legislation is affecting folks in terms of their choices and their ability to make wise choices in terms of protecting their assets with health insurance, which is the big point of what we're doing here. Types of individual health insurance policies. This is another area that we need to spend some time, and we'll do that. Again, the questions that are in your portal are very helpful for this. So we'll need to understand how deductibles work, how they're per person, per year, and the copay as well. Typical structures are 80, 20, 60, or 40, up to an out-of-pocket limit. So we'll go over that in class, but I would encourage you to pay attention to that as you're doing those practice questions. This is just another example. You'll see lots of these. The point here is to figure out, with Randy's knee replacement surgery, what is he going to actually pay, with his existing plan. So they'll tell you what the plan is, what his plan is, in the context of the question, and then they'll ask you to calculate it. And what they're looking for on the exam, in these practice questions as well as the exam, is to make sure you understand how to apply the deductible and the co-insurance, the co-payment, and how much ultimately the insured has to pay out of pocket. Let's see, medical expense insurance is similar to group basic medical expense. So medical expense insurance is different. It's a new type of plan or product, and you'll want to be aware of it. Typically the policy limits are very low compared with a major medical policy. So this is if you're in the business of selling health insurance, this would be a separate little policy. Usually I think the premiums are less than the medical, but the coverage is less as well. So types of medical expense insurance. These are just some different types, specific things that you can purchase with medical expense insurance, and these are the most common types. But we at State Farm, we sold a few different ones of these. One was called hospital income, and it only paid if you went to the hospital, and it paid a set amount depending on which coverage you purchased. I think that policy is still available through State Farm, but that would be a medical expense insurance. It's not a comprehensive plan. So that's a type of insurance you're going to want to be familiar with. Here's some basic policy provisions, and we'll talk about those as well. Renewability, this is really important. Just know the distinction between these terms, non-cancelable and guaranteed renewable. And we'll go over some of the highlights there, and you can read that for yourself. But that's just, I wanted to highlight that those are two provisions that are going to be important to understand. Three main types of managed care approaches. This is good, HMO, PPO, and POS. How would you like to buy a policy that's a POS? That's a joke. POS is point of service plan. I think one thing I would distinguish is most clients that I've worked with, especially older, more affluent, more sophisticated, I should say. It's not even about their amount of wealth and resources as it is about their personality and their desire for independence. And I think that's what you'll find is that people like to have independence. And so one of the trade-offs in these managed care programs is the independence, your ability to go find your own doctor and work with whoever you want to work with. That's not so easy to do in these plans sometimes. So HMOs, we'll go into what makes an HMO an HMO and the distinctions between an HMO and a PPO, and back to the POS, which is basically a hybrid. It's you get a primary care physician, but that primary care physician has to be in the network, and they can make referrals. But if you're the client and you need to go see a specialist for this, that, or the other thing, you will pay higher fees to go out of network. And chances are the specialist you want to go see is not in your network. I would make that assumption. So then we'll talk about taxation of health insurance benefits. And hopefully we can zero in on what's most likely to be on the exam and understand the most important features of taxation. COBRA is another big piece of, I think you can expect to have some questions about COBRA. Here this screen shows what I think is probably the first thing I would want to know is the distinction between the number of months that the COBRA benefits are available. And so you have 36 months, 18 months if you just voluntarily quit, or you have a reduction in hours, you get 18 months of COBRA. 36 months if your family and your beneficiaries would get coverage if you died. 36 months after divorce, and 36 months for Medicare eligibility. Up to 29 months if the employee meets Social Security definition of disabled. And I am sure we'll get into that when we get into Medicare later on this semester. Then we'll jump into HSA. I love health savings accounts. We'll talk about what they are and how they work. I think most clients who are investors who have access to an HSA like them. Most of the people I work with are familiar with them and they like them, depending on their status. If they're W-2 employees, it may not be quite as big a deal, but if you're self-employed or you have the ability to set one up, it's a good thing. FSA is a different deal. I've not worked with any FSA, so I'll do a little studying on this by Thursday so we can make the distinction between an HSA and an FSA. Basically, it's like one of those plans that your employee sets up where you put money in and you have to use it by the following year. So it's not near as flexible as an HSA. It's just a way to manage your benefits and your pre-tax dollars. So we'll look at that. And this is a good little snapshot of the distinctions between HSA and FSA, and we'll go over that in class. Health savings accounts and COBRA. And then we'll talk a little bit about distributions from HSAs. The last thing we're going to cover in terms of the educational objectives is the 6 additional living expenses. So this is going to be covered in more depth when we get into long-term care insurance, but now seems like a good time to just highlight these 6 ADLs, activities of daily living. So it's bathing, dressing, eating, continence, toileting, and transferring. I would remember those. The names are important and helpful to remember, but if you would hear the definitions are: bathing is washing oneself by sponge bath or either a tub or shower, including the task of getting onto or out of the tub or shower. That's bathing. These are important too. The activities of daily living are what trigger benefits under a long-term care policy. Number 2 is dressing, putting on and taking off clothes, and assistive devices such as prosthetic devices or hearing aids. Next is eating, taking nourishment by getting food into the body by way of a plate or a cup or a feeding tube. And I think it's really important to recognize that this does not mean cooking or preparing meals. So I may be able to drink and eat, but I'm not able to put everything together to make a meal. That doesn't qualify. It's not the preparation of the meal. Next is continence, the ability to maintain control of bowel and bladder functions, or when unable to control bowel or bladder functions, the ability to perform associated personal hygiene, such as caring for catheter or colostomy bag. This definition, I think, has evolved over the years. Anyway, this is one that I think could be on the test, certainly one that you want to understand. Again, these are the activities that when you don't have the ability to function with these activities of daily living, that's when the policies provide benefits. So it's very important. I think it's 3 of the 6 that trigger most long-term care. Another bonus question: how many activities of daily living need to be deficient before coverage kicks in, before the benefits start? We should know that. I should know that. I'll find out. You'd find out too. Bonus points. And finally, number 5 and 6, toileting is the ability to get on and off the toilet and perform associated personal hygiene tasks. And if you're not in the business, this is what we might call TMI, but it is what it is, and it's one of the activities of daily living. And transferring is moving in and out of a bed, chair, or wheelchair. So you can see when you put this list together and you start to think about what it might look like for someone to be in a situation where they're receiving benefits from their long-term care policy, or maybe even considering what it might be like for them to be in a situation where they would like to be receiving benefits from a long-term care policy. And your role as a certified financial planner, as an advisor in the area of risk management, there is probably nothing more important in terms of statistical probabilities for you to be talking about with your clients in the context of financial planning. There's nothing as important. Well, long-term care is very important. We talked last night about life insurance and the importance of life insurance, and there's no question, probably life insurance is the most important thing we need to be talking to our clients about. But when we get to talking to clients who are thinking about retirement and planning the risk transfer or risk management related to the financial risk that we all have, 1 in 2 of us will experience an illness that will require long-term care. That's in our lifetime. That's a staggering statistic. And so these activities of daily living are an important introduction to that topic, which will be a whole lesson in the future. But it is on our learning objectives for this week, and I want to thank you for watching my short video. Please keep those cards and letters coming, and do let me know, is a PDF okay, or do you want the PowerPoint? I will post one of those in our Canvas before class, and then moving forward I'll know what you prefer. And I look forward to Thursday. I appreciate again your patience with me as I learn how this all works. It's a ton of information. Again, I want to encourage you to focus on those questions in your portal, and we'll go through some of those, more of those, each night that we get together. We'll carve out some time to go over the questions and practice, like we did last night with coinsurance, which was on my CFP exam twice. A very easy question. Had over should times loss less the deductible. That's the answer. You got to remember to apply the deductible. And remember, most coinsurance clauses, in fact every one I've ever seen, is 80%. but they will give you that in the question. And so co-insurance is one you don't even want to stress. When you see that question, you go, yay. So hopefully we'll identify some other questions that are very likely to be on the test so we can make sure we know how they work. And in the meantime, we'll have some fun and get her done, and I'll see you Thursday. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.